Hey everyone, so today we are going to be installing a center exhaust on the Alfa Romeo 4C. My 4C came with the race exhaust, which is a muffler delete. So with this exhaust, I'm not expecting the sound to change too much, although it is a shorter track, so it is going to get a little louder. However, I'm also going to be installing a downpipe, and I am expecting there to be a big difference in sound from the downpipe.
Alright, so just a close-up here of the exhaust we'll be installing. So you can see this is the Centerline exhaust in chrome, which should look very nice with the white 4C here. The exhaust came with the muffler and the mid pipe. I also went ahead and purchased a downpipe to go along with this install. Apart from that, the kit did include some installation instructions and some black silicone and rivets, and the mesh for the exhaust that we'll have to remove and replace, since we will be removing these side exits, and it'll be down in the center there. So with that, I'll start working. Let's see how this goes. Okay, so under the car, we're gonna have to remove these two screws, all of these screws along the under tray and diffuser. So these also will work our way to the back. These will all remove the diffuser, and then the under tray down here, we have quite a few screws here and back there to get through. So make sure you get all of these screws and don't lose them, so that we can go ahead and put this back on, and then we'll have full access over to the exhaust and the engine. Okay, so now with the diffuser and under tray removed, we have access to the muffler. Here we can see this is just being held up by these hangers, and it's attached to the mid pipe through this clamp. We'll have to break this loose. I'll probably put some PB blaster on there. Hopefully it loosens up that bolt, and then so working our way from the mid pipe, there's another hanger right here, and then we'll need to break off this O2 sensor. There's also quite a few bolts, 3 bolts here that need to be removed, and then we have the catalytic converter right here. So with this one, it's gonna be the toughest thing to get out. I'll probably end up removing this hose just to get some more space to get this down, but then this also has an O2 sensor connected to it that we'll need to unplug, and then we can work on removing that off of the car. but the toughest thing with this is this one bolt on the bracket that's all the way up there. So that creates a challenge in trying to remove the catalytic converter from the bottom. Once we reinstall the new downpipe, we can face that bolt downwards so that this replacement is a lot easier, but it does look like I'm gonna have to try to gain access to that through the top, which involves removing this this heat shield right here, and then some additional bolts that are covering up access to that. So I'll try to work on this and see what I can do, but in the meantime I'll first go ahead and remove everything else. Okay, so the stock exhaust is off. You first have to take the mid pipe off before you can take the muffler, but the grommet that holds the mid pipe in place is a little tight to get off, so I had to put a lot of force to push it out, and then once that was loose, I was able to get the mid pipe off and then the muffler. But the other part is the O2 sensor. You'll first have to remove that before you have clear access to the bolts here, but that wasn't too bad. It's a 22 millimeter wrench or a O2 socket. So at the bottom now, we can see there is a metal washer between the cat and the mid pipe. So hold on to that because we'll have to reuse it when we put the new pipe on. And then the next thing we're gonna do is tackle, let's see if we can get in here, is tackle the bolts that are holding, so there you go, those two bolts that are holding the, right there. So it's actually nuts that we have to take off, and then we'll have to see how we reach that that other clamp nut over there I've been able to get a 10mm wrench up there, so hopefully it's easy enough to just keep working at it. But let's work on getting rid of the O2 sensor, or unplugging the O2 sensor from the cat. Okay, so here trying to film it. This is the O2 sensor wire. It's connected with a grommet over to that bracket down there. So to get easier access and pull out the wire, it actually comes off pretty easily. There's a yellow tab you can pull off, and then the connector comes loose. But then you'll have to use a pry tool to get the grommet off of that connector over on that bracket. So you can see it's this wire that traces down here, and then with it disconnected, you can go ahead, move that over, and then grab the sensor and just fish it over the heat shield there, so that once you disconnect the catalytic converter, it all drops down. So let's go ahead and start working on removing that cap. Okay, so before removing this heat shield, I'm gonna go ahead and remove this inlet pipe. So it looks like it's just 2 bolts and a nut right here, and then we can go ahead and pop this off. I'll also have to loosen up this hose clamp and see if I can wiggle that out. But the heat shield looks like there's a couple of bolts, one here, there's 2 over there, and I'll have to keep searching for more of those. I know there's a couple on top as well, but for now let me work on getting rid of this hose, getting this hose out of the way. Okay guys, good news. After a lot of work, I've been able to reach that 10mm nut holding the V-clamp. I'll show you guys what I had to do. So at the top, I had to go ahead and remove the nuts holding this heat shield in place. That gives me enough wiggle room to get a 10mm socket. The wrench I have with the flex head wasn't big enough, or sorry, it's too big and doesn't fit in there to grab on to the socket. But with that clearance, I can move this heat shield. I can move this heat shield out of the way, and you can see it's already out of the way here, and I can fit my hand far enough to reach this socket and ratchet. So with that, I can keep working at it until that V clamp is loose, and then hopefully this just drops off. So I'll keep It's in place now, but I'll keep loosening it until I can get this off. Also, to get enough clearance for my hands to fit in there, I did have to remove the catalytic converter mount that's here. That was just two 12 or 13 millimeter sockets here holding it in place, and then that just dropped down. I did get enough. I'm at with the heat shield removed, I'm able to move it out of the way, and this heat shield also, as well as the turbo inlet pipe. I had to remove that, but now I have been working at it for a few minutes here. It's slow progress, but it's enough now to where this is loose. So I'm gonna work on I'm gonna keep working at it, and hopefully it's only a couple more minutes to get that B clamp off, and then this should just drop down. Okay, so now that it's loose enough, I was able to twist the clamp so that it's visible. So I'll keep working at that until I'm able to pop off the catalytic converter, but that took a lot of turns before I was able to get it loose enough to rotate over. And now I can get my wrench in there and hopefully work on it a little bit faster. Okay, it's a bit dark in here, but I got it off. Okay, so you have to loosen it quite a bit before it's wide enough to pop out. There is a metal gasket in there, so set that aside, and then that should just come right off. Now we'll remove the O2 sensor and then get ready to install the O2 sensor on the new downpipe, and then hopefully that goes back in smoothly. Grab that over here. So we can see just how much smaller the new downpipe is. So we should have plenty of room to work with in there. All right. Awesome. So now with the whole exhaust and catalytic converter off the car, I'm going to work on removing the rear mesh grills. Hopefully it's not too bad. There's some rivets in there that I think I'm gonna have to drill out of the side grills. If it becomes too difficult, I might leave them on temporarily and tackle that a different day, but for sure the center mesh needs to come off to make room for the new exhaust. Alright, so let's get started. All right, so we got it all off. It was a lot of work. You can see I took off both panels, but what really did the trick, which was this, see if I can get you in there, was this cooler shroud here, disconnecting that and giving me that wiggle room to like get my ratchet in there, to reach the bolt on that catalytic converter. So now we have everything off. You can see the car without the grills. I'm debating putting the center exit grills on there. I kind of like the look with it all open, but I'll see how I feel once the exhaust is installed. But with that, we can see the difference in sizes of the downpipe, mid pipes, and exhaust. Alright, so before the new exhaust, installing the new exhaust on there, what I'm gonna do is I'll start bolting stuff back onto the car, make sure when I do the install of the new exhaust, I'm able to access it properly from the bottom with everything that had to be unbolted for the first time, avoiding all of that extra work. With that said, hopefully that you can see this is the infamous V-clamp. So getting a 10mm socket on here was pretty vital. I even tried coming at it from the other side with a vise, but I couldn't get enough grip to twist it. But with that, I'll make sure that once I do install this, it's facing in a way where I'm able to access it from the bottom of the car without having to dismantle as much as I did already. So with that said, I'll start putting things back together and seeing how it looks from the bottom. Alright, so we already installed the muffler. The mid pipe still hasn't gone in. We just did the back end. But before moving forward with the mid pipe, I wanted to get the downpipe installed. I went ahead and I heat wrapped the downpipe with some titanium heat wrap. You could check out the wrapping all around and even past covering the O2 sensor up here. This can easily be moved out of the way to expose the rest of that nut there to remove it or tighten it down. And then we have some stainless steel zip ties holding it in place. With that, once we go ahead, get under there and install this, we're gonna want the clamp bolt to be facing down so that next time we need to work on this, it's a lot easier to reach and remove rather than having to take the car apart to be able to access it properly. All right, so let's get under the car and get this on. So the downpipe, midpipe, and exhaust installation went very smoothly. The next thing up is connecting the O2 sensor for the downpipe through the top, and then also swapping out the ECU for an ECU that has a tune that's compatible with the new downpipe that's installed. So I'll go ahead and remove the old ECU on here, install that O2 sensor. For the last step for me, it's gonna be installing the rear side meshes for the bumper. So the kit did come with 2 side meshes, one for each side, and it provided some black silicone as well as a couple of rivets. For the rivets, I'm going to reuse the same holes that were there for the previous rivets and previous mesh. I'm hoping that these mesh holes line up perfectly, but we'll see once we get to that step. First, we need to go ahead and thoroughly clean the bumper on the inside and make sure that all of the previous silicone has been removed and we have a clean surface for the new adhesive. Alright, so it turns out that I didn't record the first mesh installation like I thought I was. So I'll go ahead and try again. From the details inside the bumper, there's this black silicone residue, so you're gonna want to put some heat on that, heat gun, and try to scrape that off. After you've scraped off as much as you can, grab some acetone or just cleaning product and try to clean up the area. Now I found that the mesh, it's much easier to bend it to shape outside of the bumper and then sliding it in. Also, you're gonna need some snippers to cut some of these links to make it easier to bend to the shape of the bumper. Likewise, you're gonna have to, the holes don't align all the time. Some of them did, others didn't, so you're gonna want to snip in between some of these links to get the rivet through to fit into the hole. So I'll show what that looks like in a little bit as I go through it. The other thing that I am skipping is the black silicone, the new application of the black silicone. I found it very difficult to work with, and the mesh held in place, or feels like it holds in place just fine. If I have troubles with it down the road, then I can revisit this topic and make adjustments as needed. But for now, I'm just gonna rivet them in place, bend them to shape, and see how long they last. Hopefully there's no issues down the road, but we'll see. So you can see with enough heat, this comes off pretty cleanly. Okay, so now with the silicone all removed, I'm just gonna go ahead and vacuum all of this dust that came off during that process, and then I'll wipe down the surfaces with some isopropyl alcohol. Since I mentioned earlier, I am not gonna go ahead and put the new application of black silicone on. I'm just gonna go ahead and leave it as is with the 4 rivets holding it in place. So I'll go ahead now and try to accommodate the mesh and see what areas need to be bent, and get it in place. Okay, so with the mesh in place, I can begin to see where the holes are lining up, but then also where it needs to be bent, so it fits under this light housing. So you can see that it lines up, the edge of the plastic pretty much lines up perfectly with the edge of this cutout. So I just need to bend the mesh all the way across, as well as bend it to match this curve over here. So I'll do this outside of the bumper just so that it's a little bit easier for me to work with. Alright, so now we'll begin to bend this steel. I found that it's easier to work with this when you heat up the areas that you're gonna be bending. It makes it a little bit more malleable. Apart from that, I did get some scissors to cut some of the excess trim off of this. So these, as they are a bit too large when you try to fit them in there. So I'll first bend them into shape and then I'll cut that excess off. Alright, so there I tried to match that bend and curve. From the first time I installed it on the other side, this edge here was a bit too long and was hitting the bracket that's there. So I'm gonna go ahead and just trim some of this off here, as well as this was also quite long for the bumper and was also hitting a bit of that light housing. So I'll just trim about halfway through this. Okay, so now with some of that excess trimmed off, I can go ahead and fit this, try to fit this back in and see how it sits. If I'm happy with it, we'll go ahead and start riveting it down. If not, we'll just keep working at it, bending it and trimming it as needed. But let's see how it fits now. This side isn't really sitting flush. Just trying to see what that is. Try to bend it just so it sits a little bit better there. Alright, so this is pretty much as close as, or as much work as I want to put into this. The mesh is good enough. It covers the hole appropriately, and then from the outside, you don't really see a gap. So I'm good with how it sits now. So I'll go ahead and now start trimming some of these links so that I'm able to put the rivet through them. Alright, so I'm going to do one rivet at a time. I'll start off with this one because it was pretty easy to get in there. So with your rivet gun, you're going to want to go ahead and push down while closing it. Make sure you have good leverage on there. And you're going to have to squeeze a couple of times. Make sure you're squeezing down until you hear it pop. There. You'll see that the rivet's in place, and now that's not gonna go anywhere. So now we can take a look at the other side, where you can see just from that bend there is some light gapping here, but it isn't too bad. The rest of it looks really good from a few feet away. So that was the install with just the rivets. We'll see how long it holds, but I'm quite happy with this center exhaust. It sounds really good. I've already driven it for about 300 miles, and everything is running great. Okay, so we're in the car now after the exhaust install. From the GMS instructions, they mentioned we're gonna have to use multi-ECU scan to reset the ECU. So I already went ahead and connected the USB over to the OBD2 port. So let's go ahead and get this car on. I'll close the door. So we're not turning on the car, we're just turning on the accessories. So I noticed that immobilizer icon came up after installing the ECU. So I'm hoping the reset will clear that, but we'll see. We also do need to clear codes before doing the reset. So now with the car on, I'll go ahead and connect. before that, let's check if there are any errors. Electronic key, signal compare. Alright, so let's clear this. Okay. Let's go back over to adjustments and go ahead with the self-learn. Alright, so next up I'm gonna go ahead, turn the car off, turn it back on, and then run the other reset here. Alright. Alright, so that's complete. All the self-learned functions have been reset. I'll go ahead and disconnect. So here we'll go ahead and turn the car off. Done all the resets, but still this immobilizer key stays. I'll see what else I can do to get rid of that. If not, I'll contact GMS on that.